Welcome to Creepypasta. Please like, share and subscribe. This will help us make more content for you. Thank you.
Did the world end in 2012? I've wanted to talk about this subject for a while now. The other day I had a random urge to look into it again and read some old stuff. You know, just for fun. Ever since then, about 2 weeks ago, I've noticed other people talking about it again. But the strangest part is, I cannot find anything online about it anymore. Like I said, you can find people talking about it casually or joking about it. But I cannot find any of the in-depth material I had read before. Did all of those people delete their content? This has actually been really frustrating for me because now I have nothing to refresh my memory while writing this. I've found a few things here and there that are helping me piece the puzzle together again. But I know there used to be so much more out there. I really can't even remember the first time I've heard this theory, but it's become somewhat of a meme. I did find a video of Max Lawn, that child genius from YouTube, touch on this theory, but I don't think he's the first person to talk about it. So did the world actually end in 2012? Well, it was the year scientists at CERN finally found the Higgs boson, you know, the particle Stephen Hawking predicted could destroy the universe, or in his own words cause the universe to undergo a catastrophic vacuum decay. Well, what would happen if we destroyed the universe? Would we know? Maybe CERN accidentally created a black hole that sucked us in and we've been living inside it. Physicists actually believe that might be a possibility. There's the old cliché argument that nothing has felt right since 2012. I agree with this. Maybe it has something to do with growing up and getting older, but ever since then it seems like the world descends more and more into chaos each day. There's some sort of calamity happening almost daily. Mass shootings only stay in the headlines for like 12 hours now. Did we all die and go to hell? I don't really believe that, but some people do. I think we're in a simulation. I think after the universe was destroyed by CERN, our collective consciousness was moved into a computer-generated copy of our world. The copy is almost exact. The minor differences we notice are what we call Mandela effects. There was someone on 4chan a while back who claimed they were one of the 23 scientists at CERN responsible for creating the Mandela effect. They claimed the planet was destroyed and we were placed in a simulated world. The thing I thought was most interesting though, is that whoever this person was described reality as being like a set of Russian dolls, where there are worlds nestled within one another, or simulations within simulations. The idea of simulations within simulations is not something new. It has been a part of Eastern philosophy since the 3rd century. A quote by Alan Watts illustrates it perfectly. Imagine a multidimensional spider's web in the early morning covered with dewdrops. And every dewdrop contains the reflection of all the other dewdrops. And, in each reflected dewdrop, the reflections of all the other dewdrops in that reflection. And so ad infinitum. That is the Buddhist conception of the universe in an image. We could even say the idea of being in a simulation goes back to Gnosticism. But anyways, besides the Mayans, there were some other people who predicted 2012 would be the end. One of these people was Terence McKenna. Well, he didn't necessarily believe 2012 would be the end, but he predicted there would be some reality rearranging event. He made this prediction using his time-wave zero formula, which supposedly mathematically decodes the King-Wen sequence of the I Ching into something that graphs the fractal patterns of history. The graph culminates in a singularity point of infinite complexity. To understand this concept better, you can imagine a tape wrapped up in a spiral like you find inside a VHS tape or cassette tape. Time goes round and round in smaller and smaller loops until eventually, time runs out. Is there another meaning to the end of time? Preston B. Nichols, a supposed whistleblower who wrote books detailing time travel experiments at the Montauk Air Force Base, claimed that they were never able to time travel past 2012 because they could find no tangible future beyond it. According to him, there was a very abrupt wall there, with nothing on the other side. Whether he's a crackpot or not, what I find interesting is he did this interview in 2014. Like it's just a strange thing to say considering you've already made it past that date, right? Also, here's a fun fact, Stranger Things and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind are both loosely based on those experiments. There's also a theory floating around that we've reached the end of history. The end of history is a philosophical idea that has been talked about by such notable figures as Hegel, Marx, and most recently Francis Fukuyama. At the end of history, events still happen, but humanity has reached the end of its socio-cultural evolution. This theory has nothing to do with time travel or simulations, but rather, the stagnation of human progress. I just find it fitting that people think this is happening. It kind of fits the dreamlike purgatory theme. It's this theory I find most when trying to research the topic of the world having already ended. Now if you think in terms of 4D, or beyond linear time, we can say that the universe has already ended. The moment it began, the end was set in stone. Perhaps the universe is in a constant cycle of expanding and contracting, and our souls are just taking a ride on the cosmic Ferris wheel. However, whether we are in another reality or not, I think we've always been right where we're supposed to be. I believe the only real place is here, and the only true moment is now. Home is where the heart is, and it is our present thought of our memories that make them real. For all we know, the universe could have been created this morning along with all our fake histories. Like the dude from CERN said, it doesn't matter whether it's real or not, what matters is our experience. So this is nothing to be afraid of. If anything, the powers that be are afraid of us. If our universe was indeed destroyed, I like to think of it as analogous to a flower growing from the nutrients left over by the remains of another. I know I don't have much new information to add on this theory, but considering everything I had read before is gone, I really think the conversation needs to be opened up again. If anyone has more information on this, please post it.
Comments. This kind of reminds me of a video I saw which discussed the idea of immortality through infinite parallel universes. Essentially, every time there is a chance that you die, a universe buds off in which you did die, and one buds off where you did not. But your consciousness would not be able to perceive the ones where you died, only the universes where you kept on living. Hence you seem immortal, even though you are in a universe where others die around you. Maybe this is something very similar, where the entity in question is not a single person but our universe. If our universe had a chance of dying, then it would also bud off into the two ultimate possibilities of life and death. Maybe we are simply existing in the one that lived, because how would our consciousness even know it if the universe ended?
This is essentially what I think happened. Humans shaped the universe with their wills. They saved the earth from destruction with their simple belief, their faith, that it would still be there the next day. That ultimately everything would work out okay, because that's how stories are supposed to end. Unfortunately, now we've created a universe for ourselves not governed by physics and probability, but by narrative. Terry Pratchett called it narrativium, the force that causes events to follow the pattern determined by the observer. Even more unfortunately, it seems that we've entered the Back to the Future narrative stream in which Biff becomes president, and subsequently all civilization is thrust backwards in scientific and sociological development. What a drag.
I've spent the last few years wondering where my life went so wrong. Everything was going great up until around 7 or 8 years ago, is what I've been thinking. I was super happy, loved my job, etc. I've been in a personal downward spiral since then. In my mind it started around 2015, but it makes sense it started somewhat earlier. It was subtle at the beginning. But I've just had this increasing sense of doom and not rightness with the world. Like I'm on the wrong path and the rest of the world is too. Also, feeling this absolute need to start to learn about all things spiritual, when I've considered myself an atheist most of my life. I've always been super analytical and logical, and I've just had this strong sense that I've nurtured that part of me to such an extent that I've neglected all other parts of my being. I don't know, it's difficult to put into words.
Great post. I agree that the world appears to be in a social de-evolution of adequate significance, for me to be cautious with regards to our long-term survival. The end of history is an interesting concept, and I appreciate the references to physics. Just to add to the convo, 2012 doesn't seem like a year the universe ended, as much as perhaps the year your universe ended. Some of the affected trace back the changes to years, even decades prior. The common theme in the group appears to be an NDE just prior. And so perhaps for them, those are the years that their universe ended. This is not to say that I believe everyone affected is deceased. Only that the world began to appear different to them, and some of those differences are quite significant, such that they describe it as a different world altogether. Who is to say? It's fun to wonder about it as a possibility. The end of history reminds me of biblical passages that mention the end of days, meaning just the end of an era and beginning of another. It mentioned that during those final years some would be secreted away. It was described as a maiden hidden in the forest Turk. This overlays a multi-world or parallel theory well enough. Critics rightly point out that every generation wonders, even preaches that it is the last. I wonder if every generation is the last. Meaning, that each individual goes through their own mini revelations. Not scripturally accurate so much as a subtype of what is to come sort of thing, I suppose. And so it follows that any individual through history could have felt it in a way on a new earth. I've also been wondering of late if consciousness itself might exist as a potential, just like some subatomic particles. Consider the electron, for example, existing not in one location so much as a cloud of potential locations. Enter the observer, which in this case could be our own self-awareness, and in that instant the consciousness cloud of potential is forced to isolate a space-time location out of unimaginable possibilities or Earths. Do you have a creepy story? Please share it with us in the comments and we will post it on the channel. Please subscribe. Thank you.